Before supermarkets lined their shelves with endless choices, survival meant making a meal from whatever the land or the scraps would allow. Imagine living in a world where a handful of roasted corn had to carry you through a full day's work, or where the sweet taste of molasses in a tin cup felt like pure treasure. These were not just recipes, they were lifelines. In this video, we'll uncover 10 survival foods of enslaved people on plantations, dishes born of desperation, ingenuity, and resilience. Each bite carried more than calories. It carried memory, identity, and the will to endure. And the echoes of these foods still reach our tables today, even if their origins have been forgotten. Stay with me until the end, because the final dish isn't just about survival, it's about joy, community, and a fleeting taste of freedom in the harshest of times. Picture a misty morning in the cotton fields. The crack of the overseer's whip echoes in the distance, and in a pocket there's nothing but a few toasted kernels of corn. This was parched corn, the original trail mix, but not for leisure hikes. It was for survival. The kernels were dried, then roasted until brown and fragrant, popping with a smoky crunch. No pot, no seasoning, just a handful in a cloth sack ready to eat. Each bite gave just enough energy to push through another hour of brutal labor. Sometimes this was all a person had for the entire day. Fast forward to today, and you'll see its echo in kettle corn at fairs or corn nuts at gas stations. But back then it was the line between life and death. From these charred little kernels sprouted a seed of Southern food traditions that still linger on our tables. As night fell over the quarters, smoke curled from an old iron pot. Inside bubbled cornmeal mush, just ground corn water and a pinch of salt. Nothing fancy, yet it was enough to quiet an empty stomach. When hot, the mush was thick and heavy, spooned out into wooden troughs where children huddled side by side, eating like piglets from the same feed. No milk, no butter, just a bland porridge to keep hunger at bay. By morning, the cold leftovers were sliced and fried, transforming into crisp corn cakes, stretching one meal into two. It was the wisdom of poverty. Cook once, eat twice, waste nothing. Today you'll see its shadow in Southern fried corn cakes or Italian polenta fries. But its roots lie in nights of desperation when food meant endurance, not pleasure. Now imagine a winter night wind howling through the cracks of a wooden cabin. In a black pot simmered nothing but turnip greens, the bitter leaves most folks tossed aside. For the enslaved, they became a lifeline. Boiled down in water, sometimes salted, sometimes blessed with a scrap of pork fat. They turned into a stew, both harsh and sustaining. The smell was earthy, sharp, and smoky from the fire. A bowl of greens didn't taste like comfort, but it filled the belly with warmth and strength. Over time, families learned to soften the bitterness with slow cooking onions or roots. And from that survival food grew a cherished tradition, the steaming pot of greens still found on Southern stoves today, always paired with cornbread. From leaves, once discarded, people created not just food, but hope stretched into a meal. On the plantations, one crop thrived in the southern heat, where little else would cowpeas, better known as black-eyed peas. For enslaved Africans, this humble bean carried the taste of home. The stew was simple. Boil the beans until tender, maybe add salt or a pork rind if available. Most days it was just beans and water, plain, heavy, sustaining. But every bite connected them back to Africa, where cowpeas had been cooked for generations. Eating them was more than survival. It was holding on to identity in a world built to erase it. Today, black-eyed peas are a New Year's symbol of luck and prosperity. Dishes like Hoppin' John carry that legacy forward. What began as survival food became a cultural emblem woven into Southern tradition. Sweetness was rare. Every so often, enslaved people were given a ration of thick, sticky molasses. Not enough for baking, but just enough to stir into a tin cup of water. That simple mixed molasses water was a treasure. For children, it was a rare taste of joy like candy. For adults, it was fuel, quick calories to endure another day in the fields. Sometimes it doubled as medicine, mixed with herbs to ease coughs or stomach aches. That humble cup planted the flavor of the South. From barbecue sauces to gingerbread and baked goods, molasses became the sweet backbone of regional cuisine. Today we sip sodas and energy drinks without a thought, but once a cup of molasses water was liquid gold. The plantation owners kept the hams and roasts. What trickled down were scraps of salt, pork, fat trimmings, rinds, and cast-offs. In the slave quarters, those scraps became survival's cornerstone. Fried in a pan, they released precious grease that flavored beans, greens, or corn mush. Chewy bits of fat turned bland stews into something resembling a feast. Salt pork wasn't a gift, it was refuse. Yet in desperate hands, it became the soul of the meal. That salty, smoky essence still lives on. From collard greens simmered with ham hocks to cabbage fried in bacon, Southern cooking carries the legacy of scraps once thrown away. Today's comfort food began as survival food. In the heat of Southern fields, enslaved families planted okra, a seed carried from Africa. Combined with corn, it became a mash that tied the old world to the new. Sliced okra pods boiled with ground corn or grits created a thick, sticky stew, sometimes slimy, sometimes gritty, but always filling. When scraps of onion or pork were available, they added flavor, but most nights it was just corn and okra. Each spoonful was more than food. It was memory, a reminder of African stews and porridges. Preserving this dish was an act of cultural survival, and its legacy remains in southern gumbo succotash and every pot of okra still simmering today. Long before root beer filled frosty mugs, there was sassafras root tea. Dug from the forest, the roots were boiled into a fragrant amber drink. Earthy, slightly sweet, slightly spicy, it was warmth in a cup. Beyond taste, sassafras was believed to heal soothing coughs, easing fevers, calming weary bodies. The knowledge came from Africa, blended with Native American herbal wisdom. Drinking it wasn't just comfort, it was resilience, steeped in roots. Centuries later, its flavor inspired the birth of root beer. But the origin wasn't carefree soda. It was enslaved families huddled around the fire, sipping survival from a pot of roots pulled from the earth. When the meat was gone, when even fat scraps were picked clean, there were still bones. Tossed aside by the plantation kitchen, they became the foundation of bone broth in the slave quarters. Simmered for hours, the marrow released faint fat and flavor into thin broth. For children and the sick, that broth could mean the difference between collapse and endurance. It was bitter, oily, but it kept people alive. Today, bone broth is sold in health stores as a wellness trend. But its roots were not luxury or diet fads. They were survival, wrung from what others threw away. In late summer, enslaved families slipped into the fields to pull a few ears of tender green corn. Thrown whole into hot coals, husks, blackened steam, hissed, and sweet kernels softened inside. This was roasted green corn and husk. Children laughed, peeling back charred husks to reveal golden kernels, gnawing every bite to the cob. Adults gathered too, savoring the smoky sweetness. For a moment, the bitterness of life lifted. Corn roasted in its husk was not just food, it was joy, a taste of freedom. Today, roasted corn is a treat at fairs and backyard cookouts. But once it was one of the few times food felt like a gift, not a ration. From parched corn clenched in weary hands to roasted green corn shared around a fire, these foods tell us more than how people survived. They reveal how a culture endured. Every scrap, every root, every bitter leaf was transformed into something that carried families through the darkest nights. What we often taste today as comfort food, collard greens, black-eyed peas, cornbread, even root beer began as survival food. Behind every dish lies a story of resilience, memory, and the human need to create meaning, even in suffering. This journey through 10 forgotten foods reminds us that cuisine is never just about flavor. It is history, identity, and legacy on a plate. So I'll leave you with this. Which of these survival foods surprised you the most? And which one do you think deserves to be remembered at our tables today? Share your thoughts and stories below. Your voice keeps these memories alive. And if you believe these histories should never fade, like, subscribe, and share, so that together we can keep honoring the past through the food that sustained it.